Welcome to Choosing and Pursuing Alternative Careers, sponsored by the ABA Career Center and free to its members. Moderating the program today is Kathy Morris. Kathy is founder of Under Advisement Limited and former director of career counseling and placement for Northwestern University School of Law, former director of the ABA Career Resource Center and the Center for Continuing Legal Education. She has decades of experience with guiding law students, lawyers, and law firms, focusing on attorney training and professional development. Kathy, you may proceed with your program.
Thank you, Bonnie. I'd like to welcome everyone, of course, to our November program of the ABA Career Advice Series. We timed this particular program because in case you're contemplating a career change for 2015, we want you to have some of the benefit of great advice from a couple of the leaders in the field. We're really lucky because we have two lawyers today who practiced law for a time after getting their JDs, and now they help other lawyers with their career searches and career switches. Carol Welsh is with us from New York today. She runs Carol Welsh Consulting. Carol practiced litigation and employment law at two of the largest firms and worked with Pace Law School's Lawyer Reentry Program, which they call New Directions for Attorneys, a novel kind of program. It focuses in part on helping lawyers find alternative careers. So it's great we have Carol with us today. She's actually a certified coach, and you'll hear a very, very thoughtful advisor. So welcome, Carol. And while Carol's in New York, Casey Berman is hailing from the left coast today in San Francisco. Casey also left the practice of law after a certain point, and he created, and he still works in a number of capacities with enterprises in technology and communications and finance. But in 2009, he was giving a talk at his alma mater, and the room was packed. So he saw and seized opportunity, realizing how many other lawyers want to focus on where to begin to look for alternative careers, and so he started a company aptly called Leave Law Behind. As you know, and welcome Casey, I am the moderator every month if you've been with us before, and we hope if you haven't, you'll be with us again, and I'll be with you as the moderator of the series. So a hearty welcome to all of you, and let me give you a quick run through our program agenda if you're new to the series. We go through some top issues, and we have some conversation amongst the three of us today. And then we have some tips on the topic, short tips from each of the faculty members. We take your questions. We have an agree-disagree moment where I throw out an idea, and the faculty agrees, disagrees, and quickly tells us why. We try to pepper in more of your questions and leave you with some takeaways to think about, things to do after the program, as well as resources on this program, and mention some other ABA resources that we always make available. So with that quickly said, let's get started. And I'd like to throw this out to Casey.
Yeah.
All right, Casey, we don't want lawyers to make snap decisions about running away from the law, and so
right.
how do they make sure that they're working on moving to something that they really want?
Yeah. Hi everyone, and Kathy, thanks again for putting this together. This is great, and my first response after a lot of writing at leavelawbehind.com and working with clients, and through my own experience since I left the law in 2004. How to begin choosing an alternative career is not to focus on the career, not to focus on the job. I say that because I think a lot of us as lawyers, we've done everything. What I found is we've done everything, quote unquote, right, and we're still unhappy. We took AP classes in high school, and we got the grades in college, and we took the LSAT, and so on. And so what I mean by this is, to begin choosing an alternative career is really to go further upstream to ourselves. Really look inward, and not to, I know I'm in San Francisco, but I'm not trying to get foo-foo California on everyone, but, really for the first time in our lives to be selfish, and selfish in a good way, which really look inward at ourselves, find those skills and strengths and enjoyments that we really enjoy that come naturally to us, and through that process, let that inform what jobs we go to, what industries we want to. I think I know I went to law school and didn't really think critically about it. We go because our parents wanted us to go. We go for, ethnic reasons, familial reasons, security reasons. And so my first step in choosing alternative career is to really not focus on the job or the career or any of that, as hard as that may be, because that's where our mind instantly goes, but really to first focus on ourselves.
That's so, I think, helpful to everybody. And I also think you talked to us about a few questions that you would suggest people think about, maybe talk about with others. I thought they were really interesting. Can you quickly share those?
Sure. So people may be saying, great, Casey, that's awesome. Focus on myself. Now what, right? And there's a lot of questions out there. What did you want to be when you were 8 years old? What's your passion? What did God, or if you don't believe in God, what did the Spirit put you on earth to be, right? And a lot of those questions can actually stress us out, because I know when I was 8 years old, I wanted to play third base for the San Francisco Giants, and I don't really have a passion. So what I've tried to do is really get questions that give you real, actionable answers that don't stress you out or are kind of ambiguous. And so the questions that Kathy, that we've talked about are three. I've written about this before, but really, as you want to go inward and find yourself, you really want to identify those traits and skills that you have that are really tangible, like, oh, right, that is what I'm good at. And the questions to get to those are, one, go to your friends, family, colleagues in a confidential way and say, if you had to compliment me, what would you say I do well? The second one is, what would you or others come to me for advice about? And what do you think I have done in the past, or what do you think I would do for free? Again, compliment me. What do you come to me for advice about? And what do I do now, or in the past have I done for free? And these get to your strengths. They get to how people value you, and they get to what you enjoy. And when you get all of these traits and things, you look at them, it's more tangible. What you can then do is really, create this narrative about who you are, kind of like a scouting report for a lot of sports fans out there, what you're good at, what you're not, and then you look at those, and it gives you that audit of who you are as a person, what you're good at, what you enjoy, what comes naturally to you, and then you find jobs and industries that align with that. I mean, I'm all about, instead of us groveling and going after jobs, have the jobs come to you and present themselves to you. Let's shift the paradigm in that sense.
Yeah, we're going to get to that, because I want us to explain some of those concepts as well. Those three questions, sure. I hope people found those really concrete and helpful, because I did. And Carol, do you kind of agree with what Casey's saying about first you kind of talk to your friends, colleagues, your family, et cetera? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I agree with the first critical step in the process of transitioning to an alternative career is that entire self-assessment and looking inward and taking inventory of your skills, interests, values, goals. It's a really, really important piece of the process. And a lot of people think, as Casey said, it sounds sort of like a luxurious, sort of self-indulgent thing to do, but it actually makes a lot of sense, in particular when you're trying to market yourself to a prospective employer. If you know yourself very well and your skills and strengths and your personality, you'll be able to communicate better about yourself to others. I also agree. I think Casey's questions are great, and they sort of remind me of the advice that I often give to people, to have a personal board of directors. Have personal and professional contacts who you rely upon for advice in different areas of your life, both personally and professionally, and go to them for objective feedback on yourself and how this process and this road may head for you based on what seems like a good fit for you. There are also a lot of really great resources out there. If you're not working with a counselor from your law school in the career development office or whatever, there are some really terrific books, and I just wanted to point out a couple. One is a book called The Creative Lawyer by Michael Melcher. It's an ABA book, and it's sort of like having a coach in the form of a book. He really guides you through a lot of the important exercises that you need to do as part of the self-assessment process. And another one that's really more just anecdotes of lawyers who left traditional practice and pursued alternative careers. It's called Life After Law by Liz Brown, and it's just filled with stories of lawyers and the paths they took to go from traditional practice to an alternative career.
You know, I think you gave us, and if people want to look on the site about this series, which is www.ambar.org/advice, Carol gave us some additional items we might read and an article about creating your career narrative. I think it really helps explain what we're talking about here so far and why it's important to focus on your skills and make sure you know how to convey them well as you decide what that might lead you toward. And for introverts, and many of us are, if you want to do some reading first and some thinking first before you start asking Casey's questions and talking to people, that this Carol's information kind of gives you a leg up there as well. So Casey, you're looking at your skills, you're figuring out, what you're, who you are and what you enjoy and all those good things. So let's say you come up with a long list. I mean, let's say that, if you're not thinking literally about what's this going to lead me to too early and, geez, what am I going to do, but you're just assessing without putting that pressure on yourself, what do you do once you have this list of items?
Yeah. So, Carol, thank you for that. I think that personal board of directors is a great way to think about it. And Liz Brown's book is great. She actually wrote a guest post on my blog, Leave Law Behind, so you can read that, and the great resources. Once you get this long list of traits, and it may be that with these folks, you want to do it confidentially. You might want to talk with some law school colleagues or graduate friends or people. Obviously, you don't want to go down the hall to the law firm and talk to someone. One hesitancy I know with all of us is wanting to keep this confidential. So you can do it in that way. But, once you get all these traits, the first thing that's going to happen after they email you, and some people won't email you. They'll think you're crazy, and you're just going to, that's the first part of doubt and the first risk or fear that you'll run into. But I'm a big fan of the line that says, your life expands or contracts in relation to the amount of courage you have. And it's a real courageous thing to look inward. It's a real courageous thing to go to people and say, hey, can you compliment me? I'm not trying to fish for my ego. I'm trying to assess. So it's a real courageous, hard thing to do. But once you do it, your life really expands. So then what? You're left with, 73 traits. You're dependable. You're interpersonal. You're this. You're that. What you want to do, and this is where coaches come in and can really help, but what you want to do is segment these as much as possible. So you don't really want to talk about all 73. You want to bucket them into 3 or 4. The reason you want to do that is it gives you that structure. Let's say you bucket them into interpersonal traits, leadership traits, dependability traits, and creativity traits. And under each of those you have, creative, dependable, loyal, whatever it is. Once you get that structure, you then get your narrative that Carol was talking about. And the reason you want to get a narrative is because, one, you start feeling really comfortable about what you're good at. If we asked everyone right now, tell me, 30 seconds, who are you, what you're good at, we would fumble over our words. Once you practice in the mirror and you have this structure, you feel sincere, confident, and authentic about it, which is a great internal feeling. Now for the external, what you get to then is now you go in front of that hiring manager and you can really see how certain jobs align with you. You're seeing how your skills and strengths fit with that non-legal job or that non-legal job, or maybe that other job within the law, or maybe a job within compliance or HR. So what you do once you get this brain dump of traits is you want to segment them as best as possible into some structure, 3 to 5 buckets, and then use that structure to complete a narrative for you personally so you feel authentic and confident in it. And then this moving forward is what you go publicly with yourself to, 1, present yourself well to people, and 2, to really do that critical analysis of what jobs and careers out there. I'm not just going them for stature or stability, but I'm going to them because, wow, they're really in alignment with what I'm good at.
And I think, some people may be listening to us and thinking, okay, that's great if you have this sort of brain dump and you have all these strengths and you're bucketing them and you've got yourself organized and ready to think and present. But, Carol, what about if people go through this assessment process and they come up with very few things on their list? They might ask, are there tests that they can take to help them, assess themselves? Is there another resource for the people who have trouble getting jump-started?
Sure. There are a number of assessments out there. Some can be taken online, and some require a certified administrator to give you the test. One that's become increasingly popular with lawyers is called the Highland Ability Battery, and it measures skills and abilities, and that could possibly help you to identify skills and strengths that you have that you haven't been able to sort of put words to. Another test is called, that's very well known and has been around for a very long time, and that's the Myers-Briggs test, and that more focuses on psychological preferences. And the thing that it's been particularly well known for is identifying introversion and extroversion, which is kind of an interesting theme among lawyers, many of whom sort of self-identify as introverts and perhaps struggle, with networking or business development. But the Myers-Briggs is a very, very helpful test and sort of very well accepted in the legal industry. And then there's something called DISC that measures personality traits and tendencies. There's the Strong Interest Inventory. That's really more for recent college grads, but it's interesting. It kind of it measures and assesses interests. So there are a number of them out there.
Yeah, someone just asked, what was the name of that first test you mentioned, the Highland Ability Battery? Did I get that right?
Yes, it is. It's the Highland Ability Battery.
Okay, great. And someone also wrote in to share with us that the TKI assessment is also good. So there are all kinds of interesting things. What you don't have to do, I think, is sort of go back to the point where we were maybe, earlier in life, like college, where we really had no idea of our interests, and we were sort of just coming up with things, that, were so broad. Casey, what do you think about that when testing and what it reveals?
I think it's great. I think it's a really good way to go. I'm a big believer in that, one, even if you're introverted or different personalities, you're going to be able to go to your community, your network, the folks that know you the best, throughout your life, from early days to your 20s or 30s, and be able to garner some traits from them. So I think testing is a great way to go. I also think another good way is, like I've mentioned, to do your own version of outreach and gather those traits that way, because I think it's something that isn't necessarily formulaic or spit up by an algorithm or anything like that. It's actual people who know you well, who have those anecdotal experiences, providing you with traits and feedback that they think you're good at or that you've done in the past. And so I think it's essential for that. It's something that I push. And I think that even if you're an introvert, even if you're someone who doesn't reach out or may not have a huge network, start small. Start with 2 or 3 people. Get 3 or 4 traits. Baby steps are great in this type of thing because it builds momentum, it builds confidence, they're easy to do. It's not all or nothing. And you know what? If you fail or you mess up, all you did was take a baby step. You don't fall that far, and it's easy to pick yourself back up. So, these steps can be done incrementally and really just get the ball rolling.
All right, let me help the audience because I'm getting a bunch of questions that are similar. They wanted us to repeat the names of those 2 books and a couple quick questions about the names of these tests. The first was The Creative Lawyer. That's Liz Brown's book. The next one by Michael Melcher. Carol, what was the name of that book?
Actually, Michael Melcher's book is The Creative Lawyer, and Liz Brown's book is Life After Law, and those are both listed in the printed resources document.
Okay, great. No wonder people are confused, and I'm confused as well, but this is a great amount of help. They asked about the DISC test. Is that D-I-S-C, the DISC?
That's right.
Someone kind of cutely said, did she say a DISC test, D-I-S, but it's DISC, D-I-S-C. And then the name of the test that measures your interests. Is that the Strong? Strong. The
Strong Interest Inventory.
Okay. And I think that's covering, what people said. Somebody else wrote in about Richard Bowles, the What Color is Your Parachute book. They asking for anonymous email reference feedback from people for introverts. There's something they called the www.checkster, Checkster.com. said it's free. You can do it more than once. So there's lots and lots of resources. You guys can also look for them after the program. I'm sure you'll find more. But I thought somebody asked an amazingly great question here, which is there a danger of getting stuck in the interest testing and assessment stage? We're sort of cautioning everybody, don't run out and, jump on, trying to get jobs immediately. And I know, Casey, you have an article that they can get on the ambar.org site about sort of what jobs might align with what lawyers do. And that kind of helps people, I think, move along, because it's clear you do have to get out of the thinking stage. We're such good thinkers, and we may be, trepidatious about trying to make a change, or we may be thinking somewhat negatively, which I want to ask you guys about. Oh, gee, what else would I, be able to do, because my skills are not immediately recognizable, to job postings that are for non-law jobs. And somebody on the call asked about that too. Talk to us about, once you've got this sort of back and forth, this personal interaction, this drilling down and making it personal, having read things and maybe tested and talked to people. So then what do you do?
You get out there. So what you do is, sure, there's definitely a risk or a fear of getting stuck in these stages, but you get out there. As far as the leave law behind that I've laid out, there are 5 steps. The first step is sort of really getting your money situation in place and getting an Excel sheet out, which I know a lot of lawyers may not use regularly, and really seeing what their money situation is. The second part is kind of around identity, understanding, are they willing to break free and not be able to call themselves a lawyer any longer. The third stage is around the unique genius, what we talked about, skills, doing all of this board of directors and work and so on. The fourth is around fears, overcoming fears, and the fifth step, I'm going a little quickly here, is around getting out there and interviewing and meeting with people. And so once you get kind of a list of your traits, you're feeling good about your narrative, you've been practicing in the mirror, all this sort of stuff, what you do then is you find jobs through a coach or help within law, outside of law, that might be in alignment. So let's say you're very interpersonal, you're very creative, you like people. Okay, well, let's maybe there's corporate training jobs, maybe there's HR jobs, maybe there's marketing jobs. I worked with someone who was a criminal lawyer, loved to write, the nicest guy in the world. The next thing you know, he left the law and he's working at an online legal, do-it-yourself legal company and writing for them. So it's just been a great fit for him. He took his steps to get there. So what you do is you get all these traits, and then with the help of others, or able on your own, or through LinkedIn, or through a lot of research, you find jobs that align with them, or you think at least align with them. And you want to do 2 things. You want to research those jobs. Go meet people who do them, 3 or 4 coffees. See if you like it. Who knows? You might come away going, oh, my God, I thought I liked business development, or I thought I liked corporate training, and it's a yawner. No way, I don't want it. Or if you do like it, you've done your research, and then you say, you know what? I really like this. Thank you, Mr. Jones. I know you were so-and-so's friend. I want to let you get back to your office. Is there anyone else you know in this space I could talk to? And you start building that momentum. You start meeting with people. One, you're really validating that this is a job that's potentially in line with your skills and that you like. And 2, you're building networks. And as so happens, so many jobs are not on monster.com. They're not on the boards. People say, you know what? It's interesting. We just had a great coffee. I really connected with you. Why don't you come in? There's a role that we're thinking about. This is after 6 months. It's after researching the space and after meeting with 18 people in that industry. And you look at it and you're like, I really feel good about the space because of all the work I've done. So the question is, once you've got these traits, feeling good about this narrative, you then get out there, talk with people who are in this space, and you see if the space really is something for you. And if it is something for you, you then build your network and contacts that could potentially lead to an opportunity.
Right, and while you may be looking, for postings and things like that, Carol, what about something like LinkedIn? I mean, they have jobs that they post and whatnot, but what about it as a somewhat networking tool, in this phase when you're trying to see what jobs there might be and kind of get contacts to sort of spur you on?
Absolutely. And Casey's advice about getting out there, this process, and it is a process, and it can be a time-consuming process, it can't be done behind a computer screen. You really need to get out in front of people and talk to people about what they do and what skills they use in their work, and reflect on whether that is a good match for you. And LinkedIn can be a great tool for identifying people who either have the kinds of jobs that you possibly are interested in a particular industry, or the kinds of people who hire for those jobs. And you can locate them on LinkedIn, and basically with simple professional emails, ask people for 20 to 30 minutes of their time to talk about their career paths and how they got to where they are today. And you'd be really pleasantly surprised at how helpful and productive that process can be. But overall, LinkedIn is a really important tool to use in this whole informational interviewing and networking process in an alternative career transition.
Kathy, real quick, to just to build on Carol, for all the introverts or folks out there who are rolling their eyes or going, oh God, I knew I had to talk to people and network. It is part of it. As Woody Allen said, it's 95% of it is showing up. But there are, email templates that I have and others have that can help you get those introductions, cold or warm leads. So there is a structure to really help you. It's not like you have to draft this email by yourself. And when you go to these informational interviews, you're asking someone to essentially talk about themselves. Hey, Mr. Jones, you're friends of so-and-so, and really I'm interested in your industry. I'm looking at alternatives, and tell me about your day. Who doesn't want to talk about themselves for 20 minutes, right? So doing this informational interview is actually a lot easier than many people may think. And then you listen and you're interested, and then you close it down from there. But you do need to get out there. You need to go talk to other human beings. You need people at the law firm. Where is so-and-so? Did they run out for lunch? I mean, there are some things that you're going to need to do to meet with people. But there's a structure. There's a plan. And it's actually not as difficult as many people may be thinking.
Well, I just want to say, yeah, Carol?
I just wanted to add one resource that we often overlook, and here we are through the American Bar Association putting on this program. If you're possibly interested in another industry like media or higher education or healthcare, many other industries have professional associations as well, and using your lawyer skills of research, you can figure out what those professional associations are and contact the executive director or contact someone there and find out, can you connect me with someone who can speak with me about working in this industry, or can you tell me about additional educational credentials or whatnot that I might need in order to forge forward with a career in that area. So professional associations are also a great way to unearth information about other careers or industries.
I wanted to say, this is great. I want to harken back to Woody Allen, who also said he didn't go to college because he could not find a parking space. So one of our callers, listeners, made a great point about going back to people you knew from college, because they're not all lawyers and they're doing different things. And if your college is having an alumni event, it's clearly a good thing to try to force yourself to go if you're feeling awkward about it, and to talk to people about their jobs and maybe follow up with them afterward. You don't necessarily have to put it out right then and there over cheese and wine, but you're reestablishing contacts. And believe me, everybody's lost touch with people in this day and age, so don't feel awkward. Let's get. I want to get along to the tips, of course, but one of the things that I think concerns me is that sometimes we need to be practical about this, and that tends to help lawyers sort of show their pessimistic side. Oh, this sounds great, but I don't know if I want to leave law. There's prestige, or maybe I should think about doing law and doing something alternative. How do you quickly give them advice about the line between being practical and being pessimistic or negative that we're also sort of accustomed to being by training when we're talking about choosing and then pursuing an alternative career, of course?
Sure. First of all, legal skills are fantastic skills, and there are many of them. But one thing that is tough is that as a lawyer, we're often trained to be risk-averse and to sort of look for the worst-case scenario in a situation. That's what many lawyers do for their clients. But when it comes to approaching your own career and your own career development, you need to be really open-minded and be creative and be open to possibilities and maybe be a little bit less risk-averse. So sure, it's absolutely important to be practical and to consider all of the the important factors, but you need to sort of put on a different mindset when you go in this process than the one that you may be used to using as a practicing attorney.
Right, not a worst-case scenario kind of thing.
Right.
Casey, a couple quick thoughts, and then I want to get some quick tips from each of you.
Yeah, it's easy to get pessimistic or to say I'm an older lawyer or I don't have much experience. I've talked a lot about this, but I think what I'd like to tell everyone is the world is a beautiful place. The world is full of opportunities, and I know I'm calling from California here, but we in America, we in law school, there was litigation jobs, transactional jobs, and academic jobs if you were smart enough. That was our universe of jobs. And I can tell you there are 3 gajillion jobs out there, particularly if you're in a big city with technology or finance or media or whatever. There is so much out there. And so one. And two, I think, I'll go back to what I said previously. I wouldn't worry about jobs. What job should I get into? What job should I get into if I'm right-handed? What job should I get into if I'm left-handed? If I'm older or if I'm this? Don't worry about jobs. Focus on yourself. Focus on yourself. Look at your current job as an opportunity to pay the bills so you don't have anxiety about loss of money and supporting your family and everything else you have to do. And then just take a month or 2 or 3 to really focus on yourself. Now, do it incrementally, and opportunities will present themselves. So for all of us risk-averse and folks who the sky is falling, I want to say there's a beautiful world out there of a lot of entrepreneurs and so on they're fine with not being perfect. They're fine with testing things. And the skills that you have, like Harold said earlier, issue spotting and client management and meeting deadlines and everything that a lawyer does, believe it or not, is not just needed in law. It's needed in the rest of the world.
All right, let's talk about some quick tips just to change up the pace. I don't know what you mean by this, Casey. We got your first tip, then Carol has a couple, then we'll end up with you quickly. What do you mean by explore your unique genius?
So your unique genius is a term I took from someone, and I just love it. And what it is what you get to after you ask those 3 questions, the compliment question, the advice question, what I would do for free question. As you work on this, your unique genius is what you really it's those skills and strengths and enjoyments that are unique to you that you're really, really good at. Maybe you're that person who can walk up to a whiteboard, sketch out ideas, and within 20 minutes everyone in the room says, yeah, that's what we're after. Maybe you're that person who can walk into a room and schmooze and meet people and just build relationships like it's easy. Maybe you're that person who's quiet and introverted, but who can take all these disparate pieces of so on and write a 1-page synopsis or put down a flow chart where someone says, exactly, that's what we need to get to. Whatever it is your skill or strength is, whatever it is that value, that's your unique genius. And the whole goal of this from the upstream is focus on finding that unique genius, which changes over time and morphs, but focus on finding that unique genius and really getting sincere and confident and comfortable with it, and then saying, okay, I feel pretty good about myself. I feel really good about my skills and strengths. All right, jobs, industries, roles, careers, who is out there that fits me?
All right, Carol, I want to see how lawyer skills, you have this tip about utilizing your research and staying open, because we look at in the alternative when we do our work. Combine those 2 tips and give us just a quick, maybe they're self-explanatory, then we don't need to spend a lot of time on them, but mention just briefly what you mean by those 2.
Absolutely. As far as the research goes, it's pretty straightforward. Really, the same kind of focused and incisive skills that you have as a lawyer to pull up, the relevant case on a matter or whatever, are the same kinds of skills that you're going to use to find out what particular roles in industries that interest you, what skills they require, what the nature of the work is, what additional credentialing, perhaps, for example, you're interested in human resources or the nonprofit arena. There are, you can research and find out whether there are certificate programs in those areas that could help you along your path. But it's really the same, your local librarian could be an invaluable resource for you. It's really sort of expanding your research skills beyond the legal venue to the greater world to figure out what these alternative careers may be and what they entail. And again, being open is really what we had said earlier about, and echoing on Casey's comments. It's sort of, the world is, despite a tough economy, the world is your oyster, and the skills that you have as a lawyer are really very, very valuable in a lot of different arenas.
Casey, before we get to this last tip of yours, we're getting some questions here about, but people just tell me, oh, yeah, but you're a lawyer, or, what if you have to worry about taking you have to take a pay cut if you move away from the law. So when we say don't let your pessimistic side overtake you, Casey, what do you mean let the jobs come to you? What is that?
Well, let's talk about the pay cut for a sec. I would ask folks, how certain are you of that? How do you know you're going to take a pay cut? Because I can tell you that there are a lot of non-legal jobs out there that pay pretty well. They pay pretty well. So this whole initial idea that I'm going to lose money or get cut 30%, 50%, not necessarily true. And if it is something lower, if you were to match it out on a per hour basis, if you were to see that you get, equity in a company, or there's bonuses, there's a lot of other ways to get paid in the world than just on a salary or billable hours or a contingent fee or something like that. So I would first say that, not to challenge everyone, but to say that as you go into this, really look at the jobs that you're looking at and really see, because I think people will be pleasantly surprised that there are ways to make good money that isn't necessarily a huge pay cut or a pay cut at all. But as far as letting the jobs come to you, when we go after jobs, and I'm simplifying things, but oftentimes we're going after the job because we need stability, we need security, because we want to be at a such and such stage in X number of years, because society says this is a good job, because we believe this is a good job. That's why we'll commute an hour, or that's why we'll work Father's Day, or that's why we'll do all these things, is because of those reasons. And there's a lot of jobs out there that, and those are good reasons, stability, security, and so on. Don't get me wrong. Jobs need to incorporate that. But when I say let the jobs come to you, what I mean is let's start with our skills and strengths, what we're really good at and sincerely feel good about, and then go out to those industries and do the research and meet people. So what happens is you have networked with folks, you feel really sincere about what you're good at, and you really, for instance, you can go to an HR manager at a non-legal job, or maybe even in a house job or some other type of job, and they'll say, yeah, tell me, why do you, Mr. Lawyer, want to leave law? Why are you even good for this job? And you would say, I'm really happy you asked that. I've reviewed my skills and strengths, and I really view myself in three main ways. I'm good at A, I'm good at B, I'm good at C. I've done a lot of work around this. And as I viewed this job description, I feel a really great alignment between my three main skill sets and the 6 requirements that you have in this job. Let me elaborate a bit further. Bam, right? It's that point where the job is almost attracting to you because of all the hard work, the research, and the confidence you have in how good you are and how your skills would be such a good fit for it.
Okay, I think that makes sense. I hope that makes sense to the audience, because we're trying to really encourage, I think, sort of taking a leap of faith and kind of trusting that there's a process that you can get involved in. But let's go to agree, disagree. I mean, feeling desperate does that help people make the leap away from the law if they're sort of analyzing and thinking and then they're feeling like they need to get another job? So, does that jumpstart you into the process of being active, or is that something? Does it help? Carol, do you agree that it helps? Disagree that it helps? If you get to that point.
I'm going to strongly disagree with this comment. Desperation is never a good sort of mental and emotional mindset from which to launch a successful transition to an alternative career. Sure, disappointment about your current work situation may be an impetus for change, but you should be taking the leap with more of a mindset of positivity and motivation and a clear inventory in your mind of what it was in your current role that maybe is not satisfying for you, or how does it fall short. You should really, just as you should be conducting the self-assessment process that we talked about earlier, you should be taking stock of your current work and what you like and what you'd like to repeat in your next role, whether it's inside, outside, or around the law, and what you'd like to change. So desperation is not a good way to be, and it's definitely something that can be picked up by prospective employers outside the law just as well. They don't particularly want to hire somebody who's just looking to that area as an escape strategy and that they're desperate to get away from law. That's not the way you want to be.
All right, and I think some of our listeners are sort of still concerned about the process working and whatnot. So Casey, do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Disagree? People really do want to help, even if they're happy lawyers. And you're saying that you want to leave the law. I mean, do people want to help? Agree or disagree?
That people want to help?
Yeah, people want to help you in your search. I mean, people want to,
Oh, yeah.
They're asking us about getting into that active phase, looking for these jobs, talking to people. I mean, are you going to be more running up, against roadblocks, or do people really want to help you,
right.
Leave the law? What do you
On the next slide, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with this. People want to help. Some won't. Right? There may be your aunt at the barbecue who gives you the stink eye and says, "What? Why are you leaving law?" Right? But I think there are going to be plenty of people. I know that who will definitely want to help you. They'll see skills that you have. The other thing that is they will see a lot of value in what you provide. So I fully agree with this, that people from all walks of life, once you get out there, once you start describing what you're doing and discussing where you're at, you'll be pleasantly surprised by the amount of people and the quality of people and how connected they are and how helpful they are and how they do really want to help you.
Well, it's interesting because we're talking about sort of a lot of talking to people and getting information, research, et cetera. Somebody asked a question which I think is pretty interesting, which is what about your resume in all of this as you're actually pursuing these alternative jobs? And by the way, someone asked, are we talking about just going from one area of the law to another? Is that what you're talking about by alternative careers? No. We're actually talking about doing something different. It could be in a law firm. It could be that you go into recruiting in a law firm or some sort of other role. It could be that you're going to something completely other. Read Casey's article that's up there about a lot of things lawyers are really geared toward. But they look at your resume and they see attorney or lawyer. I mean, what advice do you have to sort of set people who are reading your cover letter or looking at your resume on the right path to take you seriously about your transition?
Your resume is an important tool, and whether you're searching for a job in the law or you're looking to be outside the law or around the law. So you need to revisit your entire resume, and you need to lay it out in a way that makes the skills that you have very clear to a prospective employer in an alternative career, that they are valuable and relevant. So you need to sort of go back and review your resume and perhaps do a lot of rephrasing and set it up differently. Some people, some attorneys who are looking to pursue alternative careers go with sort of a functional format resume, where instead of just chronologically, in reverse chronological order, listing past legal jobs that they've held, instead they pull out from those roles the specific skills that they've had and identify them in groups. And I just want to point out that one of the books that was on the resource list that I had included is called Alternative Careers for Lawyers by Hilary Mantis, and in it, in the back, she's got an appendix that's filled with sample resumes of lawyers who sort of changed their resumes around if they wanted to pursue a career in publishing or human resources to highlight the needed skills in those areas.
And some people are second career lawyers, so you bring your past forward. Some people are, they're good with deadline and detail and whatnot, and so if they're looking to be some sort of legal journalist or something, you can put things on a resume that aren't just where you worked and what you did. And certainly you can use your cover letter that way. If you're looking for a job having to do with writing, you're a good writer, you want to write a good cover letter, you want to write a good resume. So it all, sort of ties together. You're asking really good questions, listeners, and I think, I hope you're feeling like you're getting, some very, straightforward, good guidance. But this is the beginning of the conversation. We want you to do your own research and read some things and, get the answers to the questions we couldn't get to. Now, someone said, where's this resource list that we keep referencing? And somebody else asked about Casey's 3 questions. The resource list and other articles that Carol and Casey have written for us are on www.ambar.org/advice. You can get everything that you need there. We did a prior program last year on alternative careers. Look at that. Listen to that one. It's all free to ABA members, and take advantage of all those resources. And Casey, your 3 questions, would you go over them real quickly, just not to describe them, just say what they were again for the people who maybe came on the call late when you're saying what you start by asking people to help you identify your strengths?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one question is, if you had to compliment me, what would you say I do well? The second question is, what would you come to me for advice about? And the third question is, what do you think I might even do for free? Or mom, dad, sister, what have I done for free in the past? Where did I volunteer? So compliment me, what advice do people come to me for, and what do I do for free?
Okay, great. Let's see. So I think somebody asked for the link again. You can see all these materials by going on www.ambar.org/advice. If they're not up today, then we're archiving this program, and they'll be up there, shortly. So don't fret. You'll be able to get a hold of these resources and use them well. Again, we can't keep repeating. Some people are saying, now, what were those books Carol mentioned? But just go on and take a look at these lists, and they'll help you, kind of know hear the things you may have missed on the call. All right. So now somebody asked about. Did someone say something?
Kathy, can I just say one thing about as a lawyer? And I'll be brief about it. But I think, I spoke at an event here in San Francisco, in-person event around this topic, and a lot of the themes that came up there were similar to here, a feeling of being scared. What if the HR manager doesn't like that I'm an attorney? How do I get my resume, so on. And those are totally understandable. And I think what I want to really, and this may be difficult for people to accept at first blush, but I really want people to understand, because I've gone through this myself, and I've felt this fear, and I felt this pit in my stomach and this anxiety, but that, it's really a great process. It's about opportunity. And if someone were, some of these questions around, well, what about me as an attorney? What if people don't like that I'm an attorney? What if that rubs people the wrong way? Fine. You're not, then don't work there. The thing that we really need to realize, and I just want to say this one point, is that within law there's a lot of structure. There's a framework. There are deadlines. We have to be 100%, and we need to be perfect, and we need to fit within the guidelines, the rules, the regulations. But if you are to move and transition to another job, there's no OCI. There's no on-campus interview in the real world. There isn't that. It's unstructured. It's more informal. It's about getting to know people. It's about sincerity and authenticity. And so a big leap that we have to make is to say, a lot of these concerns that I have, that it's going to be a scarlet letter that I'm an attorney, that HR manager is going to see right through me, they're going to think I'm not a good lawyer, they're going to wonder why I want to do this. a lot of those fears we have internally, but the real world doesn't see them, might not even be thinking about them. And so we also have to realize that there's less structure. There's a lot of going with the flow, meeting people, and then they call you back 3 weeks, and you didn't even expect this. And they go, I had a great coffee with you. Something's come up. Do you think this might be a fit for you? I've heard it a million times. So I just want to say that a lot of the fear that's coming up here, I totally understand it. I feel it a lot myself. But what's a real positive is that there's those fears kind of are unfounded when you really get out there and see how the non-legal world as well as that recruiting area works.
Right, and you can build in a little humor in this too, as opposed to, people think lawyers are so serious and take themselves so seriously. You can say, I've been a practicing lawyer, but I trust and believe you will not hold that against me, that there's so much we can do. I want to talk to you about why I want to follow in your footsteps in terms of what you do. So,
Kathy, in the tech world, it's great. In the tech world, it's kind of a badge of honor, like, well, my company got bought or I sold or I moved on and I took some time off and now I want to get back in the entrepreneurial world. And we all go, wow, that dude made a lot of money. He's successful. He was able to take time. Like, it's actually not a bad thing if you take time off and now you are blessing us with and you want to come back and work. Like, there's a narrative that we can really shift if you say, you know what, had a great run at a law firm, did really well, took some time to recalibrate, and now I'm coming to you in this role, done a lot of work on what I think is, and I think I'm good at, and now I'm here. I mean, having some time off or leaving the law firm in many ways to the outside world can be a great thing.
And so I think we're trying, to encourage everybody to take seriously the paths that you want to consider. And I think there's a really good final takeaway as we transition to them from Carol that speaks to this, to the process. Let's go with a couple takeaways from Carol, and then we'll get two from Casey. And Carol, why don't you start us off?
Sure. Takeaways on the process?
Right. Your first takeaway has to do with giving yourself some time.
Sure. There are sort of the rule of thumb. If you are looking to work around the law, like in a role in a law firm or working in a law school, the rule of thumb is often it takes at least 6 months for you to make that kind of a transition, and sometimes up to a year. If you're looking to completely leave the law altogether, you need to anticipate that process is going to take over a year. It requires a lot of research and information gathering and conversations and preparation. So it's not something that's done overnight. So once you kind of accept that that's the case, enjoy the process. It's a process of growth and development and really knowing yourself, which is a really, it's sort of a peak experience to know and communicate to others about yourself with confidence and what you have to offer. So allow yourself the time you need. And don't expect that this is something that can be done, within a week's time.
Yeah, and I think somebody asked about, well, you're busy, can you get a search firm or a headhunter? We're trying to advise you not to outsource this kind of a life transition, that you really need the time and to really make it personal to you. And headhunters are not usually in the business of doing things that are, sort of beyond someone segueing from one kind of practice of law to another, or from one firm to another. So we want to encourage you to get involved. And on that sense, you're the only one that knows what's kind of non-negotiable for you. Carol, what do you mean by that as a takeaway? Decide what's non-negotiable.
Sure. I sort of referred to it earlier. Basically, when you sit down and you assess what it is about your current role that is making you want to change and pursue something new, take inventory of what you like and enjoy doing and what you hope to be doing again in another role, even if it's in a different shape or form. And sometimes people have things like flexibility or a short commute or intellectual challenge or working independently or working as part of a team. Sometimes they have these certain elements or values that are non-negotiable. They will not trade them off for anything. And others, perhaps they're willing to, to work with a little bit. So what the important thing is to be really mindful and know very well what it is that you are either willing to trade off or what you're not willing to trade off in your next role.
Right, and it could be something, a red flag that you then learned, that it was a bad boss that you had. It was bad for you. It was a bad environment. Those are the kind of things to really think on the upside and the downside of what you really want to change. And then what are you going to commit to in terms of, non-negotiables. And that takes, as Casey said, back in the beginning, this takes courage. We want to be encouraging. And this, the three of us on the phone have sort of changed in our practice jobs into advisory roles and do a lot of interesting things like writing and speaking and whatnot. You can do the same thing, whether it's, as Carol said, inside, outside, or around the law. I think that leads me to you, Casey. You had talked about, for a takeaway, managing your search as you'd manage a project. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, what I mean by that is there's a lot of moving parts. There's no magic pill to this, as Carol mentioned, but there really shouldn't be. This is a fantastic opportunity. Think about when we were in law school, and I know I got some good grades, and I also got some not so good grades on finals. And I know the ones where I did well on a final was when I took the time, I practiced it, I got into it. I might have actually even enjoyed the topic. And the ones where I didn't do that well was where I relied on my study group. I just sort of regurgitated the outline book that I bought. And so it's the same thing here. If you just want to outsource it or get someone to do it for you, you're likely going to wind up in another job that you don't feel that compelling with because it's not really in a fit. If you take that time, do the work, really, really do it yourself and get sincere and deep and authentic about it, whether you're 32 years old or 62 years old. The first step is to not worry about jobs. Don't worry about career. Don't ask that question, well, what job should I get into? The first step of the project is to focus on yourself. It is so hard to do. Well, what job should I go? No. Focus on yourself, lay out the plans, take the steps, and you're just going to build momentum, but you got to get your timeline. You got to get tasks. You got to take out an Excel sheet. You got to realize, like Carol said, it's going to take 3, 6, 9, 12 months. But once you build that momentum, once you actually do that dirty work in the beginning, it just scales and you get this exponential growth, which is just phenomenal. And what really happens is where you end up, you had absolutely no idea that job or role or space even existed. So to even think about what job or in your project plan, think this is where I want to end up in HR or compliance, you're already restricting yourself. Start with yourself and just let it go from there.
And even law students, whether you're 32 or 62, but we have law students on the phone with us too. And you have that opportunity, to start in a legal practice job and then transition, as we all have, or
Correct.
to forego that altogether and go to something alternative. There's no harm, in not practicing law. You have to decide what's right for you. And so
Correct.
in terms of what's right for you and whether people want to help you and whether this process works, what do you mean, Casey, then by be sure to pay it forward?
Well, what I mean is what do jobs do? We help people. What do people get paid for? They get paid to help. They add value. And so when you really look at your unique genius, you ask yourself the compliment question, the advice question, the what would I do for free question. What all that really is getting at is what are the things that you do well that help others that they value? That's really it. And people will pay money for that help because they need that help. So as you go through this process, pay it forward once you're in another role or in a happier place. But even as you're going through this process, like we've talked about, help people because maybe you feel good about it. And also, if you help people and people gravitate to it, and you say, oh my God, I didn't know there was a pain here. When UC Hastings, when I went there in 2009 to talk, I had to take time off, I had to do things. And all of a sudden, I realized all these people need help, and that's where Leave Law Behind came from. So just help people, and you'd be surprised. One, you're doing a great thing, and two, wait a minute, there's a business idea here. People need help.
And share the things you heard on this call because, Casey talked about grouping your strengths. Somebody asked, what were those categories? Do you have interpersonal strengths, creativity, dependable strengths, strategic leadership abilities? Share what you heard on this call as you're talking to other people who are also in thinking about changing roles, particularly once you have. Now, I want to, of course, thank everyone, and I will, but I also want to remind you on the call where to look. You look on ambar.org/advice. You can see where we've been in this process, and somebody asked, what if you're not an ABA member? Then it costs a little money, but think about the value proposition about being a member. The thing is that next month being December, going into the holidays, we're talking about how volunteering can enhance your career, whether it's legal work or non-legal work, and it might help enhance your career search, for an alternative. That's one definite way it might enhance your search. So these programs do, have themes of helping you be ready to have the career you want. And sponsoring today and always is the ABA Career Center. And they have a website, ambar.org/careers. You can search for jobs. You can apply for jobs. You can put your resume up there. Employers can post jobs. You can get these email alerts when those are posted. Think of it, the ABA is another important resource for you because the ABA really does want to help you get jobs, enjoy jobs, and have a career that you care about. So finally, again, if you're able to start registering now for the next program, and also we're going to now then be posting the list of topics for 2015 because we've worked ahead now, and we're going to let you know what's coming up. So thank you so much to all of you on the phone and to Casey and Carol. I thought you were terrific. I'm sure others did. If everybody who is taking the program can stay online and do a quick evaluation for us, that's what will really inform us about what you thought. And so on behalf of the ABA and myself, we really hope to have you with us again for more of these career programs. And we thank you for your time and wish you a happy Thanksgiving.